Hey everyone, welcome to the Smiling Homeschooler podcast. We're glad you can join us this week. We'll get started here in just a second, but before we do, as always, we want to say thank you to Teaching Textbooks for making this all possible. They're an amazing partner and an amazing curriculum. So if you haven't checked them out, you should over at teachingtextbooks.com. It's not too late to switch, or if you haven't enjoyed your math curriculum this year and are thinking a little bit about next year, you could switch to them over at their website, teachingtextbooks.com. Today's show is also being underwritten by Samaritan Ministries and Redeem Health Share, where members are committed to honoring Christ and a community of Christians that pay one another's medical bills, helping families take a safe step of faith as they feel God's leading in career or in ministry changes or in bringing mom home. And you can learn more in the show notes about Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries. But all right, Dad, if you're ready to go ahead and get started, let's go.
Well, hey, everybody. It's a big, full week. We had the Super Bowl last weekend, and we had the beginning of the Olympics, so I hope you're watching that. That's super fun to watch. And, of course, then the big Valentine's Day is this weekend. So it is just full. And I hope you're taking advantage of those times because they're super special. I mean, there is nothing better than watching the Olympics or watching any kind of event together. Even though my kids were cheering for the curling this afternoon, and I'm like, it's hard for me to cheer. I don't know. It just is.
It's still pretty incredible.
Maybe you can do that.
I mean, how precise
it is
they are.
Incredible. I'm not.
It is slow,
I'll give them that. It is. So we were at our first homeschool conference of the season in North Idaho. It was super fun. And if some of you might have been there, but if you haven't got a homeschool convention on your calendar, you should get one because they are so much fun. Not only do you get to meet, maybe the people you listen to, like people like me, or other speakers, but it's just so encouraging being around each other and talking. And so it was super fun. And this week I'm going to be in just as you listen to this, really, I'll be in Florida with my wife. We're going to do an event in Lakeland and one in Fort Pierce and one in Tampa. You can go over to our Facebook page and you can scroll down a little bit. You can see where we're going to be. If you're in the area, we'd love to have you stop in and say, hey. So it'll be fun.
Serious question
anyway.
Here. What do you call someone from Idaho? Because like Iowan would be Iowa. Idahoan?
I don't know.
Idahoer?
Did you look it up?
No, I didn't. I never thought about it.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Idahoite? I don't know.
If you know, please let us know.
Yeah.
You can email me at familyman@familymanweb.com.
Yeah.
But Ben's getting ready for a trip. He's flying out tomorrow. He's abandoning his family for 2 days, and he's trying to look grim, like he's kind of like Paul Ingalls, like where you got to go.
Right.
I got to go in
twist
and
hay,
That's right.
No, it's just going to Raleigh, North Carolina for a super fast 2-day little event for work, and did one last year, a little over a year ago. So I know Rissa never likes it though. Last year was bad though because the worst, pretty much other than breaking a bone, the worst thing that could happen when you're gone is all your kids start throwing up. And that's exactly what they did last year. So praying that doesn't happen this year. I get back the day before Valentine's Day, so I should be okay there. But it's never fun to leave Rissa with all of them for that many days, and hopefully they all survive. It's always the goal. Even though you always had the uncanny ability, I feel like every time you went somewhere, as when we were growing up, someone got hurt or something. While you were gone, it felt like
it didn't even matter if I went anywhere. I can remember, Ben, you got stitches. You hit something, or maybe it was Sam. I can't remember.
Sam, I think.
I can remember just leaving for the church where I was a pastor. And I get there, which is about 6 minutes from my house, and Mom calls and goes, "You got to get home. I got to take one of them to the doctor." And I'm like, I just left, because everything can change in a heartbeat.
It can, but
we're going to talk about Ben today.
Yep.
Not last week. We had a great interview. That was a lot of fun. But the couple weeks before that, 2 weeks before that, we'd taken some questions off Facebook and just, kind of taken the the most requested maybe things that people were thinking about. One was about how to balance it all. I can't remember what the other one was about. But this one is a good one, and it's basically, help. We're going to high school and we're scared. What do we, do we need to be scared? Should we? What do we need to do differently? And I hear this question all the time. I mean, it's almost like, you're going about minding your own business and you're enjoying homeschooling and enjoying life. And then someone says, well, you really got to
Right.
buckle down when you get into high school. And that can be kind of scary.
Yeah. I mean, that is probably the most common time I feel like that people do stop. But I would argue just is as consequential or more so than any of the other ones. And, I think is maybe when homeschooling can shine the most, potentially even not the most, but is just as incredible during that time as any. Just to be clear, like all of my siblings, including me, all 8 of us have been homeschooled through high school, and it's definitely doable, but it's very, very common. I mean, I feel like
why do you think that is? Why do you think that moms feel that way? I mean, because I'll even talk to moms whose kids are young, and they'll say, oh, we're planning to homeschool our kids. As soon as we get to high school, we'll put them into school. And I can remember having a family member, kind of an extended family member, saying, well, how long are you going to do this? You're certainly not going to do it, when you get into high school.
Right.
Thinking that would be the time where you're just out of your league. Why do you think that
that
fear is that moms feel?
I mean, I'm guessing it's a variety of things. I think it's one, I would guess that they think that, well, I can handle the earlier subjects, but once it gets more advanced, I'm not going to be able to, keep up with all that or remember what it all is or any of that. I think it's probably, the extracurricular stuff. People are starting to think like, oh, my high schoolers need to be involved in all those things. So that's the time they should probably be at school. I think it could be, with college coming up and stuff, they think, oh, well, they need to have all of these, they need to do all of these things that I'm not going to be able to, prep them for. I think there could be a friends component involved in it, is like, well, now that they're teenagers, they're going to want to be doing more stuff. I think there's a bunch of things, but I would guess the biggest might be the academic side of like, this is where it really counts. I have to do the advanced stuff. I'm not qualified to do that, would be my guess, especially when it comes to certain, subjects, or, maybe it's things like chemistry or things like, more advanced math or whatever it is. And I think people probably get a little bit afraid of that. And that they're not.
Do you think part of that fear is that it's like, maybe it boils or comes to the surface at those higher levels where you think, I'm not a professional teacher,
right.
And they are.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think so. I mean, and it feels more real, I feel like, in those last few years. You're like, this is where it really counts, which is not true. It's counted the whole time, but you're like, I don't have, when they're 7, you've got their whole life before them, and it feels like there's time, and it doesn't feel quite as like, I have to do it now or never kind of deal. But I feel like there's this heightened sense of urgency with, those last few years, even though all of it matters so much, and it's all built up and it's all, leading to this. But I think there's that extra component there. I don't know if I didn't answer your question.
No, I think that's right. And, I think you did a great job of kind of articulating all those fears. Do you think those fears, I mean, is there anything, are they unfounded? Are they accentuated? Have we been groomed by the world into thinking that is true?
Yeah.
The parents are not capable of preparing their children for life.
I mean, just as much as all the other stuff, I mean, yes, you are. I mean, you don't have to do it all alone, too. You don't have to write your curriculum, So if you're unsure of it and you're wanting them to do something, there's so many opportunities. There's so many things out there. So you're not alone. You don't have to remember it all. You don't have to know it all. You still have years of experience for them, It's just, it's going to be okay. I mean, I went through it. My mom was able to help me through all of it. A lot of it was more independent as things went on, so that it may look different. There might be even more independence granted, but that's the cool part, right? Is that if there's a strength that they really love, that they can really start double downing, is that the right word? Doubling down, that's what it is. Doubling down on the things
he
that
would
they're
have learned that
in.
had he gone to high school.
Exactly. But if they are, and let's say they have been mowing in the summers and they're really liking that, that's something you can like really lean into. Use maybe giving them doing more business related stuff or whatever it is. There's so many options, and I think that's what's so cool about high school is you're starting to really understand who you are a little bit more, or at least you're starting to some of those the passions I think are really starting to come out in those last few years, which is so fun. And I
you mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Well, you're also talking about fears of like missing out on things.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask you because you were homeschooled all the way through. You never spent one day in any kind of other school setting. Did you feel like, like when you're talking to your coworkers, do you feel like this fish out of water because you can't talk about how to open a locker,
I mean,
or because you don't know how to do a combination lock, or because you didn't go to prom, or because you didn't do some of those things? Do you feel like you don't have anything to talk about? Do you feel like you were gypped out of things?
I mean, genuinely, I've worked in the same place for 6 years now, and I mean, I don't even know if I can ever think of a conversation where we ever had anything where it didn't feel like, where they were all talking about their school life and all these fun, like, because honestly, that fades away quick. I mean, people just don't talk about it anymore. I mean, they might talk about, in soccer, we had to, run 100 miles, whatever it is, some of that kind of stuff. But I mean, honestly, once you become an adult, you just don't really care anymore about that stuff. Like, it just doesn't really make that. So you're kind of like, oh, that's an interesting story, but it just doesn't really, it doesn't affect you anymore. At least for me, it's not like I'm like, man, I really wish I could have, been a part of a soccer team or whatever it was, So me personally, it really is just not a factor. I did have friends, we hung out, we, played volleyball, we went to movies, we, hung out and had parties, for the Super Bowl, whatever, that kind of stuff. So we did some of that stuff, but, not like wild stuff compared to
quintillions. We had quintillions back
quintillions.
then.
Yeah. All on the
quintillion.
Something like that.
Hootenannies.
Yeah, we had square dances and
square
barn
dances
raisings
and clogging.
Stuff. Yeah. But no, so I mean, we had friends and it felt adequate. I never felt lacking in that way. And I'm really thankful for it because I think it left me in a good spot. And I do think that's where it really does matter though. When you're 6 and 10, those are foundational years, but you're a little bit more limited in what you can do when it comes to you're not driving, you're not able to go leave, stuff like that. But once you're in those age ranges, it's pretty critical. There's a lot of stuff where a lot of people start getting into really, really bad stuff, which hopefully you've raised them at this point that their foundation is strong, but teen years are also the most emotional, the most insane. I mean, the things you think of and the way you act when you're like 14 or 15 to 18 is 20 is crazy, so.
And really when people say, oh, well, they have a foundation, I'm not buying it. I don't believe your foundation is set by the time you're 14 years old or 15 years old. I mean, really, you're a rocky until you've kind of crossed that line. I don't know where that is, 18, 19, 20. And even then it's not set, it starts to firm up by then.
Yeah.
But you can still be swayed in a direction you don't want to be. And I have, stories that I've shared in the past of moms who kind of caved in and they sent their godly little kids who they thought could stand up under the pressure, who wanted to go into these settings. And, they will tell horror stories of how they just weren't ready. And the godly little kids lost everything that made them so wonderful, and that's really, really sad to me. Hey, maybe now would be a good time to take just a real quick commercial and say, we want to thank Samaritan Ministries and Redeem Health Share which our families love being members of. It's Christians helping Christians pay for their medical burdens. If you're looking for a health care option for your family, take it from me. You won't be disappointed, and your family will feel taken care of. You can click on the link in the show notes to learn more about Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries.
And we also want to thank Teaching Textbooks. They're an amazing math curriculum. They're the math curriculum I used for the last couple of years in my school. Back when I was in high school, my family's used it. All of my siblings have used it. My kids have started using it, and we love them. And they're an amazing curriculum. So if you haven't checked them out, definitely should over at teachingtextbooks.com. They're an amazing company, and we appreciate their support.
Okay, let me ask you another question. So do you think, when parents say, question themselves and say, am I really qualified to teach high school? Do you think parents are qualified to teach their kids who are in high school?
Yes, you are qualified just as much as all the other times, and if you have an area that you feel like maybe your kid does have an interest that you just do not care about and don't want, there are options. You could get someone maybe in your church or your small group who maybe does love that. Maybe they'd be willing to talk, tutor them a little bit, or there's so many curriculums, but even if not, you are still capable. You are totally capable of doing it. I've seen the fruit of that, and I don't doubt that in the slightest. I genuinely have no doubt that you can do it. Just you have to fight the fear and the doubt, and your kid's going to be okay. Especially going into, I didn't take any tests basically until my driver's test, but when I had to start doing it, I was fine. Now I know some kids, not every kid's like me, and some kids are, but they're going to probably be that way even if they were in school. They might learn how to adapt, over time, but there's just going to be some people who are okay with tests, some who aren't, but they will be fine. If they're going to college bound, they will be fine. They will figure it out. There's a lot of kids going there who are not prepped at all, so don't worry about it.
And really, there are, and I think we're kind of under attack, not just from those outside, because I feel like the outsiders, they kind of leave homeschoolers alone, but I feel like there's some within the homeschool community who cause fear. I don't know whether they're trying to sell a curriculum or they really believe it. But I don't know, or maybe it's just something you say. But I feel it sometimes when I'm around them because they'll say things like, well, you got to buckle down. You got to make sure you do these. If you don't do these, your kids won't be prepared. And I still think, like you said, Ben, there's no difference between parenting a kindergartner and a 11th grader. You're still as qualified, you're still capable. And like you said, you don't have to know everything. You just have to look for it together, and I mean, really, Ben does everything that I am not even capable. Ike, who is Mr. Electronic, we didn't get him there. Sam with animation, we didn't get him there. We just kind of pushed him in the right direction, and there they go. And again, they had already learned how to learn differently. And I can remember Ben saying, hey, Dad, that just seems like you could almost learn everything you needed to learn in the whole world just by reading books. And really, that's once you teach them to read and you get out of like 4th grade, then they're kind of self-directed, not in everything, but in those interests that they have.
And hopefully, I think that is good. I think homeschooling teaches that ability to learn on your own. And that is so powerful. I don't think people I think that gets underestimated of how powerful that is. The ability to figure it out and go, okay, what do I need to do to learn what I need is humongous. And you go to pretty much any, and I don't even measure success this way, but if you do measure success by the world, then, you go to any person who's successful in a worldly sense, and they all would say, you can learn it through reading it. So many of them did not learn it through going to college and getting, either because the chances are that static class of whatever amount of time you spent in the classroom is not going to equip you to be really successful in whatever job you're going to do. You might give you the baseline, but then learning and knowing how to learn on the job and figure out what you need to know is so big. That is all from just learning how to learn, and I think homeschooling is so good at that. And I have seen that fruit in my job, in my life, and being a parent, and all that over and over and over again. And I don't think anything else equips you as well personally as homeschooling for
Oh,
that.
I agree. And I even our sponsor, Teaching Textbooks, one of the founders of that, he used to be out and give homeschool workshops. And one of the titles of one of his workshops, and we should try to get that on here. I wonder if I could get it so we could play it. But it basically, he says, homeschool, high school is the best time to homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
Not like the time to retreat, but the time to take ground, because that's when you get to take advantage and you give them a head start, because you can start to see where they're headed, and you kind of can jettison some of those things that you're like, they're never going to use this. They're never going to need this, and their interests are in this. And I felt like for all of our kids, homeschooling in high school gave them a head start in the direction that they were going.
Yeah.
They all excelled in those, when they got to those upper years of high school, they had jobs where they were given lots of, not authority, of responsibility. And they were already beginning to do things that other people didn't get till later. So I agree with them. I agree with them with that.
One real quick question I did have for you that we kind of glossed over earlier that we talked about was the sports thing. Sports are really important to a lot of people. We've briefly talked about it in the past, but I mean, do you feel like, for Jed, let's say, because he's the youngest in our family, really sports is his life, essentially. Do you feel like what he's done, which is a homeschool team, has that been enough? What do you think for the people who, do value sports really highly?
I'll tell you, we're in a great homeschool community that has, I feel like there's lots of opportunities for basketball. Now we have volleyball. They can play, I feel like at a high level. Is it as high as a high school that has 3,000 kids? Probably not. But if you're really, really good, it doesn't matter. I mean, we just watched the video called the movie on Disney Plus called Rise, which is about Giannis Antetokounmpo, or however you say his name. Whatever. That's the one.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing in Greece and Nigeria, and he's noticed. So if you're in a homeschool team and you're really, really, really good, they're gonna find you. But I'll take it a step further. If I thought the only place my kid could play high school basketball and he really, really loved it was in a public school, I wouldn't do it. I mean, just personally, I wouldn't do it. I care more about the path that he is on for life and his relationship with God than I care about him playing a sport or anything else. I know that at one time, and I probably mentioned this before, that my wife was in a co-op, not a recent co-op. So anybody, my co-opers who are listening, I'm not talking about this one or the last couple. But she was talking about how that when mom would mention like, oh, we're, it's been hard in science or something like that. And one of the moms would say, oh, you can put your kids in the public school because they'll let you just take that one subject. And it really felt like poison to mom's mind, because it was like, she's surrounded by these homeschoolers and they're trying to push her back into taking a class within the public school. And by the end, really all the moms in the group, except my wife, all their kids were taking at least one class in a public school. And several of them got sucked into the institution just by taking one class. So I would beware of those things. I would look for every opportunity not to go that direction. And someone say, oh, Todd, you're being too whatever, bullheaded about it. But hey, that's the way it is for me. If you're, and I know like Tim Tebow, he played because, that's great. That's awesome. Tim Tebow probably could have played even a homeschool league. And would have been found out. So, I wouldn't let that be your fear. There's lots of opportunities. In fact, we're getting ready. I don't know, in March, I guess towards the end of March, we'll be going to the Homeschool National basketball tournament. And I mean, I can't remember how many teams there are, but it's hundreds of teams being there. And it's super fun. It's a great community. And it's nice to know that every kid there is being homeschooled. And that's pretty cool, except maybe the ringers that they bring in, So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, and again, just as a homeschool graduate, I am thankful. I think your kids will be thankful. If you hear about someone online who's not, they're probably entitled and they don't realize what they have, or sometimes there are just parents out there who are not great parents, or who were too controlling or whatever it may be. There's one-offs everywhere, but that's the case for everything, so don't let some article or some social media post or some whatever who says, oh, I was screwed up because I was, I didn't get the education I needed in high school, whatever, don't let that make you afraid. Cause it's just, I don't believe that, or even them, they're often very successful. So it's like, well, something worked, maybe they say it's in spite of it, but I would often doubt that. Again, there's extreme examples. You can find extreme examples. That's never hard to do, but that's not the case.
And really, case. Satan will whisper those in your mind. I mean, sometimes it comes through it's Satan, and it sounds like your mother-in-law who goes, well, I just read another article that just said, this mother over here and whatever, Poughkeepsie ate her kids, and you're like, what? And then you're like, oh man, maybe that's going to happen to mine. Don't listen to that. I mean, this is not some new thing that we invented. This is God's plan of parents training their kids to be prepared for the world, to know him better, to know themselves, to love each other, and to function in the world. And I think God knows what he's doing. I don't have to defend him. I'm just going to do what he said, and it works. And again, we just had a birthday party for my daughter, Catherine, who just turned 29, which I was really a year behind. And all my kids were there except for my sick ones. And I'm telling you, this homeschooling it works. It works. Believe me, it works. Well, we're going to stop right there. Mom, I hope you have a great Valentine's Day. Let those people in your house know how much you love them. And you can do that by smiling at them, or let your husband, make him a nice card and give him a big hug and a kiss that would just melt steel. And let him know how thankful you are that he and they are in your life. And that's going to make everybody smile.
And it is Idahoan, just officially.
Idahoan.
Yep.
There you go.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. Thank you again to Teaching Textbooks for making this all possible. We appreciate their support. Go support them over at teachingtextbooks.com. And also, today's show is underwritten by Samaritan Ministries and Redeem Health Share, where members are committed to honoring Christ and serving one another through healthcare needs. As Todd likes to say, or my dad, we use, love, and recommend Samaritan Ministries. You can learn more in the show notes about Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries, or in the comments if you're on Facebook. But all right, everyone, have a great week.
And that's really about how I say it too, Ben.
Yeah, you do. Hey, you were talking that way earlier, so
I know it. That's what I mean. That's how I say it.
Yeah, he does. So, all right, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next week, and don't forget to smile.